This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Want to chime in on what's happening with your favorite KFAN program?
Sorry, Kara.
It's okay. Make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant text line. Let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard message and data rates apply.
And I'm just sitting out here bumping to the beat of my own drum here. Kara's trying to work. Unbelievable. It's Nordo and for PA. That was Kara Savage, by the way, producing 9 to noon today. Lavelle E. Neal, the third. Lavelle Neal via X, Star Tribune columnist, in studio. Twins tonight. They're in South Florida, Lavelle. Last hope of this pitching staff. Joe Ryan taking the mound tonight against the Marlins. What are you loving? What are you hating about this baseball team? And maybe there's hate is probably a strong word. I mean, they're on the absolute grind right now, though. And Marlins team, they've won 6 or 7 straight. And you just lost 2 or 3 to the Tigers. You're 12.5 or so back in the division. It's getting a little dicey here, Lavelle.
At the top of my list of concerns is what the hell's going on with Bailey Ober. That
he's broken, right?
I know. Is it an injury that he needs to be shut down for a while for? Is it something they can actually handle? Is that what's leading to this 8 ERA in the month of June? Because when Pablo went down, I thought they could absorb that because Bailey and Ryan were definitely among the top, operating as if they were among the top 20 starters or so in baseball. But Bailey's dropped off significantly. Ryan is making the case to go to the All-Star game. I believe he's 8-3 now with a nice ERA. Last time I checked, I thought he was one of the 7 best pitchers in the American League. And I think he should be on the All-Star team this year. I also think John Duran should be on too. And of course, Byron Buxton. I predicted they would make it. I don't know if they're going to get 3, especially since the record isn't that sparkling. But fixing Bailey Ober to me is the number 1 priority for this team going forward. Getting him on track where he's effective with his off-speed stuff and putting the fastball where he wants and limiting damage. Bailey's going to get hit, but he always had a knack for not giving up like home runs with runners on base and things like that, and that's changed this year. So I just wanted Pete Mackey and Rocco to figure out a way to get him to pitch the way that we're used to seeing him pitch, and I think that would mean a lot to this team. David Festa was pretty good in his last outing. Simeon is trying as hard as he can to be effective. Sometimes the results are good, sometimes they're not, but and Rocco does not want to trust him a 3rd time through the order. That's for sure. So he gets us 2 times through the order, then he's out of the game.
Yeah, which game? It was a lopsided Twins victory, I think, towards the end of last week. And he still only went 5.
Yeah, I think
I was kind of surprised by
his last 2 starts were like that. He pitched well in that Houston start at Houston and got pulled after 5. And I think his last start, and he was effective and got pulled after 5, too.
And I don't want to have to trust the bullpen either these days.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting it from all angles, Lavelle.
Offensively, they actually hit the ball a little bit better in June than they have in the previous months. But it's hard to see that because the pitch has been so doggone horrible, So
yeah,
they got to get back on track. And, I thought the Marlins would be easy pickers, but I think the Marlins are right now in the same weight class with the Twins. They've won like 6 or 7 straight. I saw the first 2 pitching matchups are going to be, just based on statistics, they're going to be pretty tough. So they're going to have to battle here, man, because they come home for a 9-game homestand before the All-Star break, and they've got Tampa Bay, which, it's kind of a plucky team. The Cubs, which may have the best offense in baseball.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember the last 3 games right before the All-Star break. Where's the Twins schedule in front of me? So
I'll grab it for you.
They've got a meaty homestand coming up, man. So they need to slingshot into that thing with some momentum. That means they need to take 2 out of 3 this week against the hated Marlins. Man, it'd be great to be in Miami right now covering baseball. I'm sure the weather's great, middle of summer.
South Beach action,
Yeah.
And then you head to an ugly ass stadium to go watch baseball because that stadium is ugly.
They end this first half starting on the 4th with Tampa at home, and then they host the Cubs and the Pirates to finish off the first half before the break.
Yep. And then you got the All-Star break, and then they go to Colorado, which is god awful, and then the Dodgers at LA. I'm sure they'll pull Ohtani in one of those 3 games too. Oh man.
Have you how would you sum up his tenure here, Carlos Correa, at this stage? How would you kind of sum that up?
Easy. And I've said it on the station before. His Twins career has been nothing like his Astros career.
Yeah.
And that is disappointing because the Twins are giving this dude, he's making $192,000 a day playing for the Twins.
Not bad.
I need excellence. He is excellent in the field. He is a moving defensive clinic in the field. Footwork, throwing from different angles, range, know-how, total package defensively. But you're making $33.33333 million a year. You're asking to start hitting. I'm sorry. Rocco's been batting him 4th and 5th. I'm like, drop this dude down to 7th and 8th. We need to see him start sticking the ball like he did with the Astros, hitting some home runs, driving in runs. A week ago, he was a 1-WAR player. 1.
That's brutal.
It's awful.
Yeah. Nothing good about it, to be completely honest with you.
The man's stealing money. I'm sorry. I got to see more. He has disappointed me ever since he's played for the Twins. Except last year, I think he was playing great last year before he had injury problems. But
that's right. He was hitting 3 and change, but then it's the injury. So it's either and as far as I know, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, figuring out the foot thing. There's a little bit of back maintenance in the mix here, but otherwise, he's basically as healthy as he's been since he came to Minnesota.
Yeah,
and he is a disaster at the plate.
Yeah, his first year, he was horrible. That ripped him in August, and he had fantastic last 6 weeks of the regular season. But I was like, okay, because he's had the free agency. I've seen this before. Players somehow have this free agent surge before they hit the market, But then he returns to the Twins. You're like, okay, great. So he has not produced like he did in Houston, and it's hurting the Twins.
It's hurting them badly. Yeah. Now, with all of that said, so right now, division getting more and more out of reach every day. Although, actually, I want to go backwards before I go forwards. I do that quite a bit sometimes. But going back to Sunday, how good is Skubal, man?
Oh, yeah.
It's incredible, and it kind of makes me hearken back to kind of the idea of, no help coming from St. Paul, at least not this year, not right now, but just the highly coveted, and all baseball teams are looking for the Skubals of the world and trying to uncover, just pulling up every rock and looking behind every corner they possibly can to get them. It made me envious, man, and it wasn't even the Twins need to win this game. I'm not playing. I'm not in that mindset on Sunday. I was just really appreciative of watching this guy absolutely mowing down everybody in his way and leaving zeros on the board for his favorite team, our adversary. And it was awesome to watch, man. Is he the best starter in Major League Baseball right now?
He won the Cy Young last year. So, you can make that argument.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's making another argument again this year. So, 100-mile-an-hour fastball, great complimentary pitches, great command. I have to point out, guess who was his first pitching coach in the majors?
I mean, it's not. Who?
Rick Anderson.
It was Rick Anderson.
It was Rick Anderson.
So I double clutched as I was looking at you, Lavelle, but it can't be that easy. It was Rick Anderson?
Yeah, it was the Ron Gardenhire era. When Gardy was running the Tigers.
Yep. And I'm scrambling to find the Rick Anderson bits that we have. Let me see if I can find it here. This is, oh my goodness. Isn't that something?
Wow, wasn't that fun?
Rick Anderson. That's super cool. Well, he found him. He may have helped him and turned him into what he is today. Sadly, I don't believe that our team has one of those in the system at this particular juncture.
In fact, when Skubal won the Cy Young November 20th last year, he was named the Cy Young. I texted Rick Anderson. He said,
"Isn't that something?"
He's a great kid. His main thing was staying healthy, and this year he did.
Wasn't that good?
He got all the Andes in there. I love it.
And Twins fans on Sunday?
Oh, boy. It was just an ugly one.
Yeah, it was at the hands of Mr. Scooble, a product of Rick Anderson. How cool is that? Now, so we move on. Let's try to beat the Marlins, and then we got the Rays. So we're handling all fish right now, and then we got some Cubs and Pirates before the break. But you're 4 back, so I believe I've discussed it with you, and maybe others as well. Mm-hmm. Is that what keeps you in the mix is hope, and you get that. It's not like you learned that from me, but to that end, the way that the American League is set up, there's been this bottleneck of teams with an opportunity to jump in for the wild cards. So
yes.
Decisions got to be made, runs got to be made, all of that. But I feel like this is slipping, Lavelle, and I feel like it's slipping in a hurry where if you don't make a meal out of this stretch here, if you don't find some way to grind out some W's with that homestand, the meaty homestand that you were talking about, I think you come out of the break not trying to, we're not going to spend July, Lavelle, talking, well, who might they add? Whether or not they add anybody, by the way, because it's tough to determine whether or not Falvey's going to be a guy that pulls triggers on moves at the deadline.
Or if the ownership are going to allow them to add it to the payroll.
There you go.
Which I doubt.
Which remains, that's a problematic conversation in its own right with the ownership. But specifically, I mean, we're 4 games out now, man. You take too many more steps backwards, you're coming out of the break already thinking about it's shedding time. It's closing time on 2025, man. That's an absolute drag.
Yeah. And the things are starting to kind of expand a little bit in the American League because a couple weeks ago, I think it was like 13 out of the 15 teams were within 2.5 games of a wild card spot.
Yeah.
And now the field's kind of changed now. The Twins are 4 games out. And now you've got 11 teams, 4 or less. Out of the playoff spot. Well, there's 4 teams that are more than 4 games back.
Yes.
That's Kansas City, Baltimore, which is a surprise, Oakland, which isn't a surprise,
and
the White Sox, which isn't a surprise.
Not a surprise at all.
So, yeah, but you're right now. You got to stay in range here because now you got to start jumping teams. You got 4 teams in front of you, Texas, Cleveland, Boston, and the Angels. That you got a leapfrog here to get back into a wild card spot.
Did you when you grew up? So Twins got to handle their business. When you grew up, you had favorite teams, right?
Yeah.
Because it just kind of. So were you a White Sox kid or were you a Cubs kid?
White Sox all the way. I hated the Cubs. Thought they played in a crappy ballpark. Thought they wore pajamas for uniforms, and they lost all the time.
I'm trying to think. At one point, they only played day games at Wrigley.
That's right. They didn't have
until when?
They added lights when I was in my senior year at the University of Illinois at Chicago.
So
USC,
early 90s, right?
That was like 88.
Oh, okay.
87, 88, I want to say.
I would have figured 90s. You look so young, Lavelle.
Yeah, right.
It's got to be the golf.
No, not the golf at all.
Okay, all right.
So, so that's when lights came on. That was a big deal, dealing with the neighborhood, and they didn't want night games, and I think it's worked out pretty good.
No, I think it's worked out mighty nicely for them. But it was just making me thinking, like, PA and I were talking last week, kind of the idea of having like a side piece. Like if you're a Twins fan, but maybe you root for the Brewers.
What?
Did you ever have that as a kid?
Why would any Minnesota sports fan pick up a Wisconsin sports team as a side?
It was just an example. Like for me personally, I grew up with basic cable down in Mankato.
That's like me rooting for the Brewers because I'm mad at the White Sox.
And so I would see a ton of Braves games and I would see a ton of Cubs games. So it's not as if I rooted for the Cubs or Braves, although the Braves were really damn good in the 90s, of course. You got Bobby Cox, you got McGriff, you got all these guys.
TBS.
Klesko, and of course like Maddox and Smoltz. You know these guys. But I loved watching Braves games. So did you have that? Did you have, I guess I hate to call it a side piece per se, but the fact that if my team's not in it and this team happens to be on my TV all the time, I'm watching Mark Grace without the batting gloves, the whole thing, Sean Dunston, Ray Durham. I'm thinking about some of the guys I watched in the
Brian McRae.
There we go, mid 90s. I'm watching Cubs and Braves games. You're a Chi Sox fan, of course. You would never root for the Cubs. But in the same sense, maybe there was somebody who was out on your TV, so you were at least always paying attention to them.
No, bleep that. I was a professional sports fan. It was White Sox, Bears, Blackhawks, Sting, whatever. And everybody else was the enemy. I was not going to give in and start rooting for another team. I did not believe in that as a young sports fan when I actually, was rooting hard for teams. Once I became a sports writer, I don't root that hard for them anymore. Definitely not a White Sox fan because I cover baseball. I do allow myself to be a fanboy to come out with the Bears.
Yeah, well,
just because it irritates people in this town. Because I live in Minnesota now, so
it is irritating. As a matter of fact,
I know it is.
Although your team might be. I saw some new Jalen Ramsey goes to the Steelers yesterday. I'm sure you saw that for Minka. Yep. So Minka goes back to Miami. Now I'm embarrassed to admit I saw something or heard somebody say that there was something when Minka left Miami the first time, because that's where he started his career, I believe, that it was because he couldn't kind of get in line with Brian Flores. That maybe Flores wanted him to switch spots or do something, be a little more versatile.
Right.
We see how he runs the defense in Minnesota. I wasn't aware that there may have been negativity when Flores was down there. So, but he goes back via trade. We know that. What excites you as we move forward? I'm so intrigued by Caleb year 2. I'm intrigued with. It's a little bit of patchwork. The Vikings did very similarly, finding some veteran linemen to fill things in. But Chicago's version of the moving company and all of that. I'm just pumped to see what Ben Johnson puts together and puts on the field, specifically early, given that our two teams are matching up in prime time at Soldier Field week 1.
Yes. And actually, I'll be covering that game. So, I'm excited too because I want to see how this all going to look. I wonder if this is going to be like another rookie year for Caleb because now he's got a new system and another head coach and he's starting from scratch because Ben Johnson came in and said that he was going to tear down the playbook to its studs and rebuild it around Caleb. So I'm curious to see how that looks. The Bears finally addressed the interior of their offensive line like the Vikings did during the offseason and have some quality guys there now. That Joe Tooney from the champion Chiefs, and they signed Dahlman, who
from the Falcons,
is considered to be the second best center in the NFL behind Creed Humphrey, I think it is.
Creed Humphrey, Kansas City.
Yep. So,
and then your guy Jonah Jackson, right? Jonah Jackson from the Rams by way of the Lions.
So Ben Johnson has familiarity with him. So I'm also hearing good things about Luther Burton Jr., the wide receiver from Missouri they drafted, who's going to probably be the Keenan Allen in that offense there.
Wow.
So I wish they would have come up with another running back to boost the running game a little bit. But
that's a super young core there.
I'm curious to see how it looks now with this remodeled offensive line. And we may have four new starters on the offensive line because Ozzie Trupillo, I believe he was a third rounder out of Boston College who's 6 feet 8 inches tall. Since Braxton Jones has been recovering from injury, they have looked at him at left tackle. And apparently he had acquitted himself fairly well.
Okay.
So the Bears can have 4 new starters on the old line when they face the Vikings week 1.
Still 4th in the North, though, right?
Yeah. I can't believe it. I know Darnold's gone. I just can't see the Vikings dropping off that much, even though they got a rookie quarterback. Actually, I think week 1 is going to be a sloppy game. I foresee a sloppy game with 2 quarterbacks, one in a new system, one in his first ever game.
Yeah.
And them both making mistakes. I could just see how it could be kind of the game could get drunk pretty early, I think, with the 2 youngsters, trying to show that they belong in the NFL. But
well, I'm just kind of worried because
if the Bears are 4th, but how many games are going to win? I mean, they're standing to win 4 more games they did a year ago just because of competency in the coaching staff. Because Eberflus kicked 4 games for them last year just for being Eberflus, and that would have had us at 9 and 8 because we won 5. So
is Grady Jarrett going to be the new Akeem Hicks? That just ruins our lives as Vikings fans every single time we face them.
There's been good stuff about
Soldier
Grady.
Field used to be like this house of horrors, and it was absolutely, there was a boogeyman every single freaking time. In a lot of ways, it was generally Akeem Hicks or some sort of, I'm thinking, well, you guys got to run Eddie Goldman, not the best career in the history of Bears football, but Eddie Goldman, probably his best games against the Purple. Is it Grady Jarrett's turn, or you got Odengbo, I think, from the Colts? It's going to be one of those guys, isn't it?
Odenigbo for the Colts has looked like ass in practice. All right.
Oh, really?
That's not been good. Grady's been great, and he's been a presence in the locker room.
Because he's unbelievable.
So that's been a decent addition. I think Grady's 32, 33 now, so he's the old soul now in the locker room.
Well, he was making memories in the 28-3 game in the Super Bowl, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that early? He was still with the Falcons back then.
Yeah. But this Odenigbo guy, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name.
I think it's just Odengbo.
Odengbo?
I think so. Let's go with it until
he is not impressed in camp. He did not impress in camp. So
at least you guys got him cheap.
Yeah. So we still could use another defensive end on the other opposite of Sweat. So
God, I'm just so pumped for that game, man.
And I'm pumped for Dennis Allen being the defense coordinator too. I think
that's the issue too, and it's so tough. I struggle with it. It's a moral. I have very few moral or philosophical conflicts in my life, Lavelle, but praising Sean Payton is one of them, and acknowledging how good Dennis Allen is at his job. He runs terrific defenses, did so as a coordinator down in New Orleans for years, didn't work out much as a head coach. Mm-hmm. He's going to cause us problems, and it's going to start with Grady Jarrett. I know it. It is written. It is going to happen week 1.
Well, I got a couple other things for you. Guess who else is on the coaching staff?
Oh, God.
Wide receivers coach, Antoine Randall L.
Oh, great. Oh, great. That means Roma Dunze is going to be throwing, isn't it?
That you're going to follow your child to this one, because when I found out, I couldn't believe it. Running backs coach.
Okay.
Eric Bieniemy.
He's back.
Yes.
He's back in the NFL. I had no idea.
Yes.
So he was. What do you think about Bieniemy? And we've brought it up here a couple of times.
He was the hot coaching candidate for a while, head coaching candidate.
Well, see, that's what I'm curious about, Lavelle, and you've followed this now maybe more closely in baseball than in the NFL, but as the columnist, you're aware of all of this. Was he legitimately a head coach candidate, or was he part of like the Rooney Rule universe? Because it kept going back and forth. In fairness, that he was always just kind of the guy that executed Andy Reid's offense. And then you would always kind of hear, well, he was getting these opportunities, but don't forget about that fiery personality, button heads with players, and, even going all the troubled past, going back to his days in Boulder, which I think is just, I can't remember. Maybe he had a Dewey or something like that back in the Colorado days. But in the end, he's an accomplished assistant for so long, and he kept every single time the cycle would start, it's look out for Bieniemy and how many opportunities he had. There were conversations about him, part of the reason he went to Washington in the first place, where then he ultimately, I think he was helping Deshaun Foster at UCLA last year. Like Bieniemy, has he truly been a real candidate, you think?
I'm going to say yes. Of course, I don't know the ins and outs, and we don't know what's said in these meetings, whatever. But this reminds me a lot of Chris Chambliss when he was a managerial candidate in Major League Baseball and was getting a lot of interviews and could not land a job. And in the end, the stuff you heard behind the scenes was that he was just a terrible interview. Okay. And kicked the interview, and he just couldn't do it. I'm wondering if that's the same thing with Eric Bieniemy. So, yeah, I mean, he could have been he could have checked off the box to when it comes to the Rooney Rule, but it seemed like a lot of people thought highly of him enough to keep speaking of him.
I thought highly enough of him
of being a hot coaching candidate, and he certainly got a lot of interviews.
But that's the thing though that's frustrating. Maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way, Lavelle. But I think about if I'm applying for a job, put the suit on, I got the resume done the right way, the whole thing, and I just absolutely screw up the interview. I understand then why I wouldn't get a job, but specifically in the NFL universe and the fraternity that it is, and everything's on tape, everything's, you want to talk about being on paper, his success as an assistant has been proven over the course of time.
Correct.
If he doesn't necessarily say the right thing in a singular meeting, I have a hard time believing that, that would be necessarily what kicks him out of a chance to be a head coach. I'd like that, the coaching cycle. I want to stop seeing the the 60-year-old who was a coach 20 years ago, but then he reestablishes himself as a coordinator and he's in the cycle again and all of that. I want to see some new faces. I'd like to see a guy like Bieniemy get a chance.
Sometimes the old guys get back, they get that second chance, man. Look what happened in Major League Baseball. There was a time where Bruce Bochy and Dusty Baker and Ron Washington were all on the sidelines. And then here comes Dusty back. Dusty reappears, and with Houston.
Did you ever interact with Dusty?
Reappears with Texas Rangers. And Wash reappears with the Angels. Unfortunately, because of health concerns, he's not going to manage the rest of the year. I hope he's okay. By the way, yesterday was Al Newman's birthday, former Twin, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow, how old is Al now?
I don't know. But people have gotten us mixed up for each other with each other for years. So, because whenever I think of Ron Washington, I always think of Al Newman. I don't know why, but yeah. So like the veteran guys get different. Like Mike Brown's probably going to be the next head coach in the NBA. Yeah. It happens.
Whereas I would have preferred like a Micah Nori opportunity, like seeing somebody new to the mix. I know it's family cred, so people will talk about nepotism. I get that. But like David Adelman getting the chance to be the permanent coach in Denver.
Instead of Ryan Saunders.
Well, but instead of Ryan Saunders, yes. So they had the choice between two former head coaches' kids, and I guess they picked Adam. But my point is that that's a new, fresh opportunity, right? So I kind of like that coming in, and you see,
you went to Jeff Dagenauts of the world to
a little bit.
Chance. Yeah,
I think I do absolutely. So that's just. And you mentioned Dusty Baker, though. Have you interacted with him at all?
Yes.
Over your travels?
He's an awesome guy.
Hall of Fame dude, right?
Yep. I'll tell you a great story. Remember the closer for the Twins named Brandon Kinsler?
Yeah.
He got traded at the deadline to Washington. That's when Dusty was managing Washington. And so, because his agent told me the story, Dusty calls Kinsler into his office. He goes, "Okay, look, I want you to sit down. We're going to talk about some things because some stuff out there about me that I just want to clear up, okay? Whatever you heard about me, about running pitchers into the ground and using them too much is absolutely true. If you do not tell me that you need a day off, I'm going to keep throwing you out there. So you come to me and let me know when you are unable to pitch, or I'm going to throw you out there every day in order to win games."
Oh,
it was a hilarious thing.
That's a beautiful thing.
It was, yes.
Man, you've probably the conversations that you've had over 3 decades of this has to be so good, man.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to talk to a lot of cool people and meet a lot of cool people in baseball. And
no, that's awesome. That's Lavelle Neal III. I expect your next piece coming up on the Twins, hopefully sweeping the Marlins. What's exciting, Tim Connolly's going to make a move. You do have in the hopper right now a full feature on Vladimir Tarasenko. Is that accurate?
No, I do not have a full, but I am writing wild free agency thoughts for Sunday's paper.
Okay.
So, and
kicks off at 11.
I know. I don't know what type of explosion we're going to have because a lot of names are already off the board. Either re-sign, Sam Bennett re-signing, other people getting extensions. Curious to see what Brock Besser gets because I wanted him to come home and play for the Wild badly. I thought a scoring winner, put him on the same line with Rossi because you're not going to trade Rossi. Let's face it now, you're stuck with Rossi, all right? Because you can't find another center.
True.
So put Brock Besser next to Rossi and watch them flourish. But instead, here comes Tarasenko.
Is it truly the idea that you bring in Tarasenko that just tells you that there's no Besser? Besser ain't coming.
Right, because what's the problem with this current free agent cycle is that it's not just money, it's years and term.
Players want term.
Yeah, because they're already talking about, I think the next CBA is kicking around the idea of shortening the longest contract to 7 years instead of 8. So all of a sudden now agents are pushing to get these guys signed to 8-year deals before the rule change comes. It's unfortunate. The salary cap jumped up by about $7.5 million, and agents saw that and got excited. And
what do you think so in the NFL, you feel like, and maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, the trend has been you want players, for instance, via the collective bargaining, they want the ability to get that extra, that second deal after their third year now of their rookie contract.
Something like that. They want to shorten that, yes.
You can start negotiating after your third year now. and you still have the 5th-year option.
Well,
in those
what
things.
they would like is to get more guaranteed contracts, which teams have darn near colluded not to do that for them.
But with the shorter terms, that lends credence to the idea of more guaranteed. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking if I am, Mitch Marner, and I don't have some of this stuff, but some of these deals that have been made, 6-year, 7-year, I think I did see an 8-year go through within the last day or two. Or these deals are agreed upon? There's
been an 8-year deal. I can't remember who. I'm trying to figure out how Mitch Marner could go to. How does Vegas fit all these contracts under their cap?
I don't know, man.
What? This is like the Los Angeles Rams, man. How are they? Who's their capologist? Because I was like, they've got that much money under the cap to pay that guy that much money. Are you kidding me?
Forever torturing us. But kind of if I was a high ender in the NHL, I would love the opportunity not to sign an 8-year deal. I appreciate the security associated with that.
Right.
Give me a 5-year deal so I can grab one more fat payday. Right.
Right.
I mean, I guess I don't. Again, different mindsets, different culture. But as I see other leagues, you see now, specifically like in the NBA, you do have some of these collectively bargain, it's a 5-year extension here and all of that. But I see players wanting to grab smaller windows to get bigger bags. But at the same time, you're telling me it's actually the league that's trying to pull down on term instead of the players in the NHL. That's just interesting to me.
Right. I was just reading a story the other day about CBA conversations. So I think that's what the league's trying to do.
Well, I'll tell you this. None of it matters because the Florida Panthers re-signed everybody.
I love this time of year because NBA free agency is starting, and we inevitably, I'll go on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and there'll be an NFL player complaining about how the NBA players are getting paid. A couple of $250 million deals will be signed, and some NFL, dang, man, I wish we had the same kind of situation.
Well, I know, and we got to run, but I that's a conversation for another time. I'm shocked by the money that they're throwing around in the NBA, and I shouldn't be because you're talking shorter rosters and all of that. But they aren't exactly the ratings juggernaut these days right now. So you got money coming in from overseas. The TV deals, I understand, are profitable and all of that. But this is still a league that's really grasping at straws for more eyeballs. Mm-hmm. And somehow, we're talking 6 Men of the Year candidate, a guy like Naz Reid. I'm not trying to take any money away from him because the money's there and the team gave it to him. Totally cool, and congrats to Naz.
Right.
But it is kind of shocking when you see deals like that. It's like, okay, this he's an off-the-bench contributor and he's getting $25 a year. It's kind of nutty when you're thinking about other leagues and maybe their financial lots.
But dude, there's third-string big men in NBA who play in like 38 games a year and they're getting paid like $10 or $11 million.
Yeah.
It's got to be
like your guy,
great lunch.
Like your guy, Yusuf.
Yusuf earned his stripes. All right, he's earned his stripes.
Oh, all right, my friend. Thanks as always for hanging out. I appreciate it. Your wild NHL free agency thoughts coming later this week. Looking forward to that. You can follow Lavelle at Lavelle Neal via X. See all of his work, of course, Star Tribune, startribune.com. Some news is next right here on The Fan.
Gear up for a hilarious night with Dane Cook when Dane Cook returns to the Island Event Center. See his legendary style of stand-up comedy live at Treasure Island on Friday, October 24th. Get all the details now at TICasino.com.
Couple truncated segments here before we get to Kevin Fallness, Wild Radio Network in studio. Just seen a little shams bomb here while I was talking to Lavelle. I guess not necessarily surprising other than maybe the creative manner in which they're going to try and make this thing work financially. But the Bucks waiving Damian Lillard, this per shams, stretching the remaining $113 million of his contract in order to, of course, acquire Miles Turner, sources tell ESPN. So he's recovering from that Achilles. I wonder, this will be kind of a test in terms of, with Giannis in particular, how much does he really love Milwaukee? How much does he really love playing for the Bucks and appreciating a city that supported him? He builds up. He gets the opportunity to win a title in Milwaukee. for the first time. I think it was exactly 50 years. Maybe it was 71 with the Bucks before, and then they win it in 2021. But you have a Chris Middleton that is bogged down. Drew Holiday moves on. You have Brook Lopez. We were talking about that earlier. The less than scintillating and steamy deals of the NBA deal-making season. Brook Lopez to the Clippers, 2-year deal. So Lopez is gone. Now they bring in Miles Turner, who kind of fills that role. And how good was Miles? With Indy, of course. But now waiving Damian Lillard, which as I look at it here, they picked up Gary Trent. They picked up Kevin Porter. They got PA's favorite guy, Kyle Kuzma. They got Eastsider Mailman's favorite player, Taurean Prince. And Bobby Portis got re-upped. 6-man energy burst right off the bench. But how much does Giannis love that? And how much does he feel like they actually have a chance to remain a contender in the Eastern Conference? But wow, yeah, now on the shelf, technically being waived. But of course, age of career, Achilles-related negativity with Dame. That'd be awful. What an awful way to end a career for Damian Lillard, if it truly is on the shelf with this Achilles. But he's getting there at this stage of his career. Super sad in that regard. But that's a little Shams news from a deal-making perspective, deal-making season with the NBA. As we inch closer, 12, 13 minutes from now, we're going to find ourselves ringing a bell and opening up NHL free agency as we talk at the top of the hour with Kevin Fallness of the Wild Radio Network. Be back in... Welcome back, 9 to noon. It's News du Nord brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park. CanterburyPark.com. Feeling the felt. It's poker, it's blackjack, it's table games all year round. And live racing in play right now, as a matter of fact. Wednesday evenings, Saturday evenings, Sunday afternoons. But I would encourage you, because it's a holiday week, go to CanterburyPark.com. The host is not here, so the producer's flying a bit blind. I know that there's a special schedule this week because Thursday night, the 3rd, they're going to have a big fireworks celebration, which will proceed or follow live racing. I think there's racing on the 4th itself. And you keep hearing me say, I think. Well, the place to go to verify all of that is to go to CanterburyPark.com. And we shall start, of course, with the Minnesota Twins. 5:40 p.m. It's the first pitch, and it's Joe Ryan. It's the last great hope that the Minnesota Twins have, and he's going up against Cabrera. And Joe Ryan, certainly on the docket, a potential all-star bid type season for him. He's 8-3, but a sub-3 ERA, and he has been just the model of consistency for a pitching staff that has fallen apart. And you heard with Lavelle earlier on. Bailey Ober is just broken. And I didn't really extend the conversation with Lavelle beyond that is his skepticism in terms of Ober's ability to maybe right this ship, in terms of what's wrong. And it kind of goes back a month or so ago now, chatting with Dan Hayes of The Athletic, where he'd been fighting through a hip and fighting through, which was causing some mechanical issues with Ober. And the thing for me is, first, I was a little daft, shocking, and kind of ignorant to the idea that, obviously a pitcher might, force his way through things. They don't immediately just shut a person down for the season if they have a hip issue. They just got to figure out how far he can take this thing. How much can he gut it out? Well, the fact of the matter is with Ober, he's not gutting anything out right now. So trying to figure that out. Ober's broken. Joe Ryan get the W tonight because, again, 12.5 back in the division. I think most of you Twins fans, I can tell you where my head's at. I'm not really thinking about the AL Central right now. I'm thinking about getting through this series in Florida and then coming home for a week and a half. You get the Rays, and then you get the Cubs and Pirates into the break. If you're sitting 4 out of the wild cards, not disastrous. But it's getting that way, and it's going in the wrong direction. And if Correa's not going to help you offensively, you're talking Joe Ryan effectively in some ways with Durant on the back end, but carrying the Twins pitching staff, Buxton carrying the offense. You can see where this is going, and it's not great. So we'll see what they do tonight. Need Joe Ryan to get a victory. And then we'll head on as I open the show. It's deal-making season in the NBA. Kind of offered a bit of an ode, or at least just a sayonara, and thanks for everything to Neal Alexander-Walker. In a deal-making evening that featured a lot of Brooke Lopez's, that featured a lot of one-year deals for Tyus Jones. How about that? Fellow Minnesota kid hanging out with Jalen Suggs not down in Orlando. Cool little bits like that, but nothing substantial last night as things lifted off. More significant news kind of jumping today. But Neal Alexander-Walker signing a 4-year, $62 million deal with the Atlanta Hawks. So now he's hanging out with Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson when he's actually healthy, Okongwu. They've kind of built themselves potentially a nice team that can play in the East. And best of luck to Neal. 2 fantastic seasons here. The defensive presence, the attitude, clogging up every lane. And he was tremendous with what he was asked to do in his role in Minnesota. And how do you fill that hole? Lavelle looks at it, and it's just plug and play, right? You're just plugging in. Okay, so depth. Well, now that's Terrence Shannon Jr.'s chance off the bench. Different kind of player, to be sure. But 3 minutes of fury from Terrence Shannon Jr., can you turn that into 20 minutes nightly in rotation? That's the next step for Terrence Shannon Jr. So all quiet on the Western Front here for Tim Connolly and the Wolves in terms of adding to the mix. Names are quickly going by the wayside. Big part of having Kevin Fallness in as NHL free agency kicks off is, okay, well, Billy G might be able to do something, but who's left? And it's kind of quickly going that way on the NBA side as well. Some news breaking, some Shams bombs last hour, mentioned it last segment too, is Damian Lillard waived. And they're dropping. This is like this is a Parisi Suter-like cap L that the Bucks are taking. They're spreading out $113 million over the next 5 seasons. They're up against it like to the tune of 22 and change each year for the next 5 years. Is Giannis going to like that? He will like Miles Turner, who they did sign to a multi-year deal, $100 million and change for Miles to join the Bucks. So those are some of the news nuggets that are out there. But around the corner, final hour, Kevin Fallness, Wild Radio Network. He's going to be in studio with me. And it sounds like he has efforted like a good producer would do. A potential cameo, a special guest, the recently traded Freddie Gaudreau, maybe making a cameo 9 to noon around 11:30. So thank you. The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. That's News to Nord. We'll switch over to hockey next and chat with Fallness. Final hour, Nordo in for PA, 9 to noon.